Traditionis Custodes. The narrative is all lies. We must thank God today. Many secret documents in the Vatican will never see the light of day for many years, decades, or even centuries. Think, for example, of the following. The papers against Cardinal Rampolla as a member of the OTO, which caused him to be vetoed as Pope in 1903. The 1978 dossier of Cardinal Gagnon, which documented the Masonic corruption of the Vatican and possibly caused the murder of John Paul I. The 2013 dossier, which documented Vatican corruption, which Pope Francis admitted was given to him by Pope Emeritus Benedict. Almost 4 years ago now, the regime of new iconoclasm issued Traditionis Custodes, a document filled with false statements in order to destroy the work of Pope Benedict in reconciling the church to herself, as he said as much in the Last Testament. But TC itself was based on a secret document which no one had ever read. That document was a survey of the world's bishops asking their advice about Pope Benedict's peace treaty between the two forms of the Roman Rite, the so-called extraordinary form, aka the Apostolic Roman Rite, the Latin Mass, and the so-called ordinary form, the Mass of Paul VI, aka the Novus Ordo Missae. Now we can thank God. The stalwart Vaticanista, Miss Diane Mantegna, has now obtained the most important part of that secret document and published the entire thing in its original language and her translation. You can find all of this at her Substack, Diane Mantegna. The document now published by Mantegna is not the full 224-page report of the survey results, but rather the summary document, the so-called overall assessment, which was given to Pope Francis with that full 200-page report. Mantegna explains what this document is. Quote, "The overall assessment is precisely the part of the report that synthesizes and interprets the survey results, offering an evaluative conclusion drawn from the evidence." End quote. Diane Mantegna summarizes this summary document with the following words from her Substack, quoting her again, quote, "The previously undisclosed text, which forms a crucial part of the official report by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith in its 2020 consultation of bishops concerning Summorum Pontificum, reveals that," quote, now Diane Mantegna is quoting the summary document, all right? So this is the quote from the actual document. It says this, quote, "The majority of bishops who responded to the questionnaire stated that making legislative changes to Summorum Pontificum would cause more harm than good." End quote from the document. Diane Mantegna comments, quote, "The overall assessment directly contradicts, therefore, the stated rationale for imposing Traditionis Custodes and raises serious questions about its credibility." End quote from Mantegna. So in studying the secret document, Mantegna reveals that Pope Francis, what he really did was he acted on the urging of a vocal minority, not the majority of bishops. So I'm going to quote again from Mantegna. So here's another quote from Mantegna's Substack summary. Quote, "What the Vatican's overall assessment reveals is that the gaps, divergencies, and disagreements about the Latin Mass stem more from a level of nescience, prejudice, and resistance of a minority of bishops to Summorum Pontificum than from any problems originating from adherence to the traditional Roman liturgy. Conversely, the official CDF report states that," quote, so this is another quote from the summary document, quote, "The majority of bishops who responded to the questionnaire who have generously and intelligently implemented Summorum Pontificum ultimately expressed satisfaction with it. In places where the clergy have closely cooperated with the bishop, the situation has become completely pacified." End quote from Mantegna. You recall that Traditionis Custodes and the accompanying letter laid the blame on the trads. But that's not what the summary report says. So all of this explains why 4 years after Traditionis Custodes, the vast majority of bishops did nothing. We wrote an article at 1 Peter 5 2 years after 2023, and we noted that there were very few bishops had done anything 2 years later. The bishops were not dying to take action here about this huge problem, apparently, that there was no big problem. Very few bishops had actually done anything. This whole process confirms what many suspected about the Francis pontificate, that he was implementing the quote-unquote synodality of Cardinal Martini and the St. Gallen Mafia, which amounted to what Penton called the rigging of a Vatican synod. It's what the liberals did in 1776 in America, 1789 in France, and everywhere else besides. It's what the communists did in 1870 in Paris, 1917 in Mexico, and then in Russia. The trick is so obvious that it's sad that so many still fall for it. Here's how it works. Step 1, form an elite conspiracy of power-hungry heretics. Step 2, find an emotional grievance that many people have. Step 3, whip up the mob using emotional rhetoric about this grievance. Step 4, tell everyone that this mob represents, quote-unquote, the people. Step 5, impose your minority will on the majority, quote, in the name of the people. This is the methodology of liberalism and its two ugly daughters, communism and feminism. It seems to have also been the methodology of synodality under Francis, and so the implementation of Traditionis Custodes is no different. They sent a survey and then plucked what they wanted out of it in order to impose their minority will on the majority. Andrea Grillo and his new iconoclast convinced the Holy Father to abrogate himself and act against tradition. What's interesting then is that what we've seen in Michigan and North Carolina recently, which seems to be an attack not only on the ancient Roman rite, but even the reverent Novus Ordo. The strange irony here is that more than ever before, everyone is watching the masses in Rome. You can go on YouTube and watch these masses. Did you notice the reverent Novus Ordo that was Pope Francis's funeral? Surely you noticed all the Latin chanting that Pope Leo has been doing. So why are these American bishops going wild against even the reverent Novus Ordo? The only reasonable explanation seems to be that they are ideologues taking what opportunity they can to impose their minority will on the bishops. Their minority will on their diocese, excuse me. Pope Leo has not acted yet on the liturgical controversy except to make huge statements by his liturgical actions, as Pope Benedict did with communion on the tongue. When 1 Peter 5 was at the National Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis, I was approached by a bishop who whispered to me, essentially, "You have lots of support," he said to me. "Keep doing what you're doing." I didn't ask him his name or try to report on it because he was clearly trying to speak off the record. But the fact that Montaigne has this summary is due to good bishops and other clergy in the Vatican who understand what's going on, and they are doing whatever they can to stop it. They're leaking something like this to Montaigne to help with the whole process to try to do something. So let us pray God that Pope Leo is given better counselors than Pope Francis. Whatever happens, thank God that Jesus is on his Eucharistic throne now and forever and unto the consummation of the world. Jesus is King.